Hey everybody, it's Demi here again with another review, and I'm gonna apologize in advance right now. We're doing back at the old style without the face cam because I just got my wisdom teeth out a little while ago, so I'm still not feeling quite confident enough to show my face online again, but I am feeling powerful enough to do a review. So, recently, my Siege Seekers review has kind of blown up, so I wanted to do something a little special and sort of give an almost sequel to it, especially now that I have all 7 of the ones I wanted to grab, and do an Earthrise Seeker showdown, so to speak. I was really excited to actually talk about this because, again, while the Siege Seekers were my first exposure to like Starscream and such in these characters, this is my first Earth mode showing on them, and I'm quite excited to get into it. So, let's go ahead and start. Moving aside the grand spectacle right here. Wanted to give that awesome first shot. Let's go ahead and start talking about Starscream, and use him as sort of the baseline to talk about everybody from. So, moving some of these since they're going to give so many shadows. Starscream here is your pretty much stereotypical go-to Starscream. The Voyager size class really does help this mold out compared to his Classics version, though sadly I don't actually have Classics 06 Starscream to go off of. I really just have the Coneheads of the Classics line to go through. So we'll talk a little more about them when we get there, but using Starscream to talk about the basic mold itself. I do quite enjoy the sort of blocky arm proportions. I kind of wish the head paint was a little bit more durable. My Starscream, at least, has had some chipping issues with his last layer of paint on his head. But honestly, I kind of like it. I kind of like that little flash of blue. Almost makes me feel like Starscream's a diva that painted his head black. Just kind of feels like something that Starscream would do. I do really like these sort of tail fin designs on the side of his fins. Not a big fan of his toes. I actually feel that the version from Siege did a lot better. So I'm not the biggest fan on that. But one thing I am a big fan about, and this is one of those things that I picked up from a fellow reviewer, a Lazy Eyebrow reviewer. Like a lot of folks, I'm assuming that I thought I was better than I am when it comes to transforming folks. So I didn't actually read the instructions, and I didn't realize that the legs actually lock in. So, little tip that I'm passing on for everybody. There is a little tab in there that does tab in, if you line it up right, that helps to lock the leg in a little more. Originally, I was a little upset that these guys had some less structurally sound legs, but now that I know that, I'm actually quite happy with that. I also do quite enjoy the null rays, just looking at them by themselves for a second. Every Seeker has the same null ray, which I do kind of wish there was some sort of difference with a couple of them, but honestly, the color difference is enough for me. It's a little bit empty on the inside, but what else can you expect? And I do quite enjoy that with everything that Earthrise does, you have a lot more options than just... sorry. You have a lot more options than just plugging it on the side or giving it in his hand. I personally enjoy the under forearm kind of thing of this, like, I'm not quite certain what to call it, but I like the way that looks in particular. But you've got a lot of options there. One thing that I am a little upset about, his waist is kind of empty. You can kind of hold him by that, but it's not too big a deal. I mean, they at least tried to cover it with these sort of side flaps. And then another thing I quite enjoy, at least for the robot mode, they all have a very accessible flight stand port. It lets you just plug them into a stand and have them in a flying pose, which for the Seekers does wonders. Honestly, the jet mode, we'll get there when we get there, but it has its own set of issues. But flying, at least for the robot mode, it works wonders for these guys. Sorry, getting you a little bit better of an angle there. I'm quite a fan. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the classic other two Seekers, being Thundercracker, who I decided to let have his day in the sun with a little bit of a fancy pose at the front, as well as Skywarp. So, Thundercracker, starting with him, since he's the one that's here, I do quite enjoy this sort of black and blue recolor. I do kind of wish that his tail fins were a little bit better colored. Again, the Lazy Eyebrow did a wonderful job repainting his, and I might try to replicate that, or just get some rep labels, I don't know. But I do very much enjoy Thundercracker's color scheme, and especially after doing some research on IDW's Thundercracker, and just that character, I already love him so much. Meanwhile, Skywarp, every Thew's favorite Seeker, I'm not the biggest fan of the screaming face. They seem to really like giving Skywarp a screaming face. But honestly, it works for some, and you can make it work for some poses. You just have to find a reason to make it work. I'm tempted to take this head off and give it to Starscream, just because I want Starscream to scream, but I'm not too concerned about it. Then, all three of these Seekers have the same sort of transformation, so I'm going to go ahead and transform Thundercracker. We'll set Starscream and Skywarp off to the side. Transforming them, pretty simple. They just have that little cone head over top, then you open up their chest cavity, classic little spinny-doo, take off those null rays, and I like to plug them onto the wings at this point, but really you can just kind of take it at your own pace. You don't have to go too fast with it. A nice little folding up of the arms allows them to just tuck in nice and neat into that little chest cavity, which frankly just makes me wonder why they couldn't fold the nose cone into there. Like, I'm betting somebody can make some sort of adjustment that lets that, like, unfold in half and slide in place, or whatever. I'm not a designer, so I'm not gonna fight it too much. Unplugging all this fun stuff on the legs, folding up those tail fins, closing up these, frankly, ridiculous-looking boosters on the end. Like, they just don't look right. Plug in those, tighten up those legs, fold out the tail fins, and last but certainly not least, folding out that illustrious wingspan to get a very nice looking jet. Now, again, I know I'm referencing Lazy Eyebrow a lot, but he was the most recent review on the Seekers I saw, so I'm naturally a little biased towards it. But these are actually like HO scale. Like, these are remarkably a good scale for, like, model stuff. So, they're decent little jets. Then, as I did mention, flight stands for the jet modes are a little annoying. On the crotch plate underneath is the flight port that you have to use, which for the Seekers, the main ones, it's not that bad. You just have the crotch plate kind of exposed as they're flying. But when we talk about the cone heads, as well as the Generation Selects G2 Sandstorm, it's a little bit more apparent that it's just a bit of an oversight, to be honest. But still, comparing it with the look of the Siege Seekers, to bring in my Siege Starscream here, I very much prefer the bulkier look of the Siege Seekers in terms of robot mode, but vehicle mode, Earthrise has him beat by a landslide. Then, so that we have some extra comparisons, here they are with Voyager, if you want to call it that, Optimus Prime, technically leader, but hey, whatever you do. And here they are with Earthrise Megatron, which, frankly, I wasn't certain I was going to grab, but I did. So, here he is. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time gushing on the Earthrise Seekers in extreme detail, because, like the Siege one, we've got 7 figures to go through. So, let's take a quick jaunt to the cone heads. So, here we have the cone heads, each with their own unique, very special designs in comparison to the simple recolors that were the classic Seekers. Now, here's where I have to confess my sins of sorts. I don't actually know the difference between Ramjet and Dirge. I know that one of them's the blue one, one of them's the white one, but the only one I know the name of specifically is Thrust. I'm not going to lie to you, Ramjet and Dirge, the fact they were sold in a 2-pack does not help me on that matter. So, let's talk about them in particular. What makes them different? So, the Coneheads, as well as having unique wings designs compared to the Earthrise Seekers, they also have these wonderful little extra shin guards. Now, these shin guards are pretty cool design-wise. I very much enjoy them. However, they pose a bit of an issue in jet mode. So while they do still have the flight stand for robot mode back there, Thrust is a little hard to see it on because he's all black, their crotch plate, when in jet mode, gets covered by their knee flaps. And they actually have like a little cavity on the inside to completely cover it. However, you have to untransform the shins in order to stick the crotch plate out to have the jets fly for the Earthrise Seekers. At least for the Coneheads, which is a little annoying. I'm not gonna lie, I do wish that there was a better way to show the Earthrise Coneheads flying. If they had come with their own dinky little stand, I would have been fine with that. If they had an easier stand adapter to access, that would be amazing. But the Coneheads, frankly, they're an army filler. Like, I was very tempted to skip the Earthrise Coneheads, and only by the fact I managed to get Ramjet and Dirge did I hunt for Thrust. Like, I was planning on just skipping them, maybe grabbing the Classics Coneheads, which I did, but I was planning on skipping them. In fact, if you give me just a moment, I wasn't prepped for this one. I have here my Classics Thrust right here. And you can see, compared to the deluxe size, these guys really upclass their old folks. They are a whole lot better looking. And frankly, I'm kind of second-guessing why I got the Classics Coneheads now that I have the Earthrise ones. They look very outdated by comparison, but they still don't look half bad, and I might look into, like, customizing them or something. Who knows? Maybe it'd be fun to customize some Seekers. But, I gotta admit, the Coneheads do not quite have the appeal to me as some of the other characters that Earthrise brought back. I do remember seeing them in snippets in the Transformers the movie, but that was just so that Prime had somebody to shoot at. Like, frankly, they were army fillers and nothing more, so I wasn't too impressed by them. However, one figure that I was not expecting to enjoy as much as I did was the Generation Selects version of G2 Sandstorm. So, Sandstorm I'm actually not too familiar with in terms of his history. I do know that Sandstorm was originally an Autobot triple changer, released along the same time as Broadside and Springer. But Sandstorm here, I really love this kind of desert camo print that he has on his jet mode stuff. And I really like this kind of Warhawk, whatever you'd call it, nose cone teeth thing. I'm not too familiar with the terminology for planes. That's not my alley of research, but I do very much enjoy the way that Sandstorm looks, and the fact that he is a wildly different color than, like, any of the other Seekers, or even other Transformers in my collection. I do not have that many in a desert sand color. And it really goes to sort of set him apart from the rest of them. He really does stand on his own, almost, compared to the rest of them. And the one thing that makes me real happy about is that he's a recolor specifically of the one Conehead. I think this is Dirge? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but my Dirge, he has 2 right shins. Like, I accidentally got one that has 2 right shins. This is a second right shin piece that was put on his left shin. Which, it's not the first time I've had incorrect shins on some of my Hasbro figures. I'm not gonna lie, I had a similar issue occur with my Siege Ratchet that had a misshapen shin, but honestly, Sandstorm kind of made up for it for me. Like, even though it's not a cone head, it's a good enough cone head, and it looks pretty nice. So, all things considered, the Earthrise Seekers, compared to their Siege counterparts, all in all, if I had to rate the whole bunch, I would give them a solid 8 out of 10. They're a decent lot, and if you can find Starscream and maybe the Thundercracker Skywarp set, I would totally jump on it. Coneheads, if you feel like getting the Coneheads. Sandstorm, good luck, but the rest of them, like, as a set of 7, I really don't feel I needed all of them. Like, they're a lovely set, and I do enjoy looking at them, but I'm really questioning if I needed all 7, especially after collecting 6 out of the 7 Siege Seekers. So, my shelf of Seekers is substantially satiated for further collection stuff. But, yeah, if you can get your hands on at least the Starscream, I would, because this is a lovely Starscream figure, all things considered. Just mind the paint chipping and make sure you're careful with him. But, all in all, not too bad a figure. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I know this is kind of not the usual form that I've had the past couple reviews, but I wanted to get this out to at least have something there for you guys, because I haven't been able to do a lot of content recently, especially stuff that shows my face. I've just been having a lot of issues with seeing my face and just being turned off from wanting to do anything content-wise after this wisdom teeth surgery. So, I will be back at some point. I will let you know when. We might stream, we might do more reviews. Whatever the case is, I do hope you'll stay in touch and stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, have a great rest of your day, everybody. Bye!